I'd like to tell you about David's bad day. One night while David was sleeping, he started having a nightmare. There was this huge wolf, white and gray and fire in its eyes and the biggest teeth you ever saw. He was chasing David, and David was running and running as fast as he could, but he could tell that the wolf was getting closer and closer. And in his dream, even in his bed, his legs were kicking and his arms were and he was making moaning sounds and such. And finally, he woke himself up, and there he was in a bit of a cold sweat. He looked out the window and he saw, the sun was coming up. It was time to get up anyway. He pulled himself out of bed. He was more tired than when he went to sleep. He must have been running away from that wolf most of the night. Well, he drug his feet along, and as he turned the corner to go out the door, his little toe caught the post on his bed really hard. He grabbed his foot and he fell back on his bed to hold his poor aching toe. But when he fell back onto his bed, his head hit the bedpost, and now he had one hand on his little toe and the other one was rubbing his head. And he said, why me? Why me? And that really smart. He sucked it up and he gritted his teeth. He got his foot back down on the floor, and he was a little more careful now as he walked along around the corner of the bed and down the stairs to where breakfast would be waiting for him. But breakfast wasn't ready yet, and he sat down with a plop into his chair and he said, "Where's my breakfast?" Well, don't you know, his mother came around the corner with a wooden spoon in her hand. She had been mixing up the hot cereal for everybody's breakfast. And she said, "Pardon me, young man?" He said, "Where's my breakfast?" She said, "I'm going to tell you what. You go back up those stairs right now, and you come down with a better attitude, or you're not going to have any breakfast this morning." Well, David knew enough not to backtalk anymore, so he stood up on his sore foot. He turned himself around, and he went stomping up the steps. Boom, 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 boom. And Leah yelled up after him, "That's not a very good start." So he collected himself upstairs, but still there was this little voice inside town. "Everybody's so mean to me. I hit my toe. I had a nightmare. My head hurts, and they have to send me back up here. On my sore toe, I had to come back up the steps. It's her job to get my breakfast ready on. I work hard all day. What thanks do I get? I get told to go back up the stairs and start over again." Well, he still wasn't in a very good mood, but he tried to keep himself together. And he went down one step at a time, gentle as he could, but he's still fuming a little bit, And he plops himself down in that chair, and he decided, "I'm not saying anything." Pretty soon Leah came around the corner, got a spoonful of that hot, delicious cereal that she made and plopped it down in his bowl, and a little bit of it shot up from the bowl, just a drop of it, hit him right on the cheek. He said, "Why don't you watch what you're doing? That's hot." And she took that wooden spoon and she waved it, and he knew what was coming next, so he quickly said, Well, that hurt. I'm sorry, but that hurt." So Leah now wasn't in a very good mood herself as she went back into the kitchen and waited for Levi to come down for his breakfast. Well, Levi comes down. He's feeling pretty good. It's a sunny day outside. He's whistling a happy tune. And, hey, David, how you doing this morning, buddy? All David could do was grumble. Well, Levi sat down. Leah come around the corner. She's not in a real good mood, remember? She grabs a big spoonful of the cereal and plops it down in his bowl, and he's got 5 or 6 splatters all over his, and you know what? They are hot. He said, whoa, 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 woo-hoo. Wow, that's hot. Are you okay, dear? She said, I get up earlier than everybody else. I start the fire. I cook the food. I get everybody off in the morning. And what thanks do I get? Everybody's grumbling and complaining by the time they come to the table. Well, I'm sorry, dear. I didn't know I was grumbling this morning. And not your son David over there. He started it all. What? What did I do? David said. And before long, everybody was getting loud and so on. And finally, Levi said, David, let's go to work. But I didn't finish my cereal yet. And it doesn't matter. Let's get outside. So they, on their way out, and Leah was saying, hey, what about the nice breakfast I cooked for everybody? That's okay, dear. We'll eat it later. Thanks anyway. And they got all their supplies together and they headed off to work. Well, don't you know, they headed off to work and forgot to take their lunch along that Leah had packed for them and was waiting. So they didn't have breakfast, and now they're not going to have lunch. And it was just one of those mornings. The barns they cleaned were stinkier than normal. The tools they used didn't seem to work. The pitchfork they had fell off the handle, and it was really loose, and they needed a pitchfork, and so they had to be real careful with it when they're, otherwise the fork went off with the manure, and then they'd have to dig in the manure and find the fork again to put it back on the handle and keep on going. It was just one of those days. The wheel on the cart gave out, and they had to get a new wheel for it. They were running behind. It was a sunny day, but it got really hot. And you know what heat does to manure, and it was extra stinky, and they were sweaty, and they were hungry, and they started griping at one another. David, why do we always have to clean barns? Why don't we do something else for a living? And Levi barked back at him, well, you know, it's what God gave us to do, and we're going to do it heartily, and why are you complaining about it? You don't have to come along if you don't want to. You can go home to your mother right now if you want to. Oh, I'm not going back to that house. She's all upset. And this and that. I think you started it, son. I started it. Well, I hit my toe and my head, and I had a nightmare, and it was just a mess. Well, on their way home, David looked around and he saw a little kid, about 2-3 years old, with his arms crossed and his lip puffed out like this, and he was giving his mother an attitude. He didn't want to have to look both ways before he crossed the street. He didn't want to have to wash his hands before he ate. He didn't want this and he didn't want that. And it made David laugh. He thought, boy, how childish. And just like that, it hit him. He was just like that little boy with his lip sticking out. I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that. I don't like this, and nobody understands me, and on it went. And he bowed his head and he said, Dear Lord, please forgive me. You really have been very good to me. You've given me a nice home with parents that love me. We do usually have plenty of food to eat. When I'm kind enough to accept it. And he changed his mind, and he changed his heart, and he changed his attitude right there. And as soon as he calmed down, he looked over and he said, Dad, I'm sorry. I've been in a pain in the butt all day long. And Levi looked at him and he felt bad for the way he had acted and things he said too. I'm sorry too, son, he said. On their way home, they picked some flowers for Leah. And they came in the door with their heads down and their flowers extended. And Levi said, Dear, I'm so sorry for the way we left this morning. Will you please forgive us? And David said, Yeah, me too, Mom. I'm really sorry. Well, that made Leah feel a whole lot better. Because moments before, she was ready to crown him as soon as they came in the door. But because they came humble, she forgave him. They sat down and they had a wonderful dinner together. And it was a whole lot nicer being in their household that evening than it was that morning. What about you? You ever act childish? You know what to do about that, don't you? Stop it. Change your attitude. And apologize to the people around you. You're going to do them as well as yourself a world of good. Amen. God bless. Hope to see you again soon.